Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Welcome back to the show. We've got an exciting guest for you today. We've got Teresa de Grobois with us, and she teaches mass influence, and she's got a brand new book out, and we're going to talk about a little bit about that today. But she's going to drop some huge nuggets on us about influence. So welcome to the show, Teresa.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Tracy.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm super excited about having you today. I know you got some great stuff. And Teresa, let's just get right into it. Tell us about your business and what types of people that you help.
I'm a speaker, and really my mission in life is to find the thought leaders and the emerging thought leaders that really want to make change in the world. And I know that sounds big and grandiose. Really what it boils down to at a grassroots level is who are those everyday heroes out there that just want their lives to count something and want to make a difference in the world. And often they're entrepreneurs or business owners or business leaders that just really want the ability to cause change. And so I work with people like that to help them learn how to really get their message out and how to become more influential in what they do.
What would be the outcome of some of these business owners that you help? What is it that you're trying to set them up for?
Well, I work with a lot of speakers and trainers, teaching them how to become best-selling authors or how to get their messages viral. Or I work with business owners, helping them learn how to go from smaller one-on-one setting to really reaching the masses.
Awesome. So, Teresa, how did you get involved in something like this? How did you get started in this business?
Yeah, I'd love to say it's been my life's mission my whole life. The reality is I more fell into it. I think the same way fish don't know what water is, a lot of us don't get what we're really good at until other people start pointing it out to us. I first knew I wanted to shift what I was doing probably about not quite 15 years ago now. Like a lot of business owners, I knew I wanted to be a speaker, I knew I wanted to be a trainer, but I floundered around a little bit until I had colleagues and friends pointing out to me, look at all this free coaching and training you're doing. Look at all these people you're helping learn how to become influential. Maybe you should really think about rebranding. And so I did. That was probably 12, 13 years ago now. And it's funny, when you find that thing that you are really good at, it just ka-chunks. And, my business took off overnight, and I've never really looked back.
Along the way, did you find a book or a movie that inspired you?
Wow, well, I'm a reading junkie. So I have to say there were lots of books. One of my favorites has to be Bob Burg's The Go-Giver. I think Bob Burg's a genius. And that book is it's a business book that reads like a novel. And it's really all about how if you want to be someone who gets ahead in business, be a giver, be someone who helps other people. And I love the concepts that book shows because it really helps people learn the influence game, because truly you want to become influential, help other people become influential. That's the quickest road to influence.
Bob Burg, that's a good one. Not only a book or a movie, but how about a person? Is there anybody that stands out that inspired you along the way?
I would have to say I've been really fortunate because my best friend happens to be Shonda Perrin. She's a 6-time Emmy award-winning producer and international level speaker herself. It was actually Sean who has helped me with some of the biggest breakthroughs I've ever had in business in terms of pointing out to me what I was really good at and what I really needed to be focusing on. Sean actually not only teaches communication leadership, but she also leads Project Forgive. So I love the really courageous conversation that she gets into around how do we become really authentic at what we do? A lot of that involves releasing our emotional energy around things that are upsetting us, which is really the conversation of forgiveness. And I'd say I can't think of anyone who's had a bigger impact on me than her.
So let's dive a little bit deeper here. What is it that drives you and gives you the passion to do what you do to help the people that you help?
One of the things you find when you start studying influence, and one of the reasons I wrote this book, is because as human beings, we're all hardwired to have a lot of inner dialogue. that stops us from becoming influential. People have, I'm not important, I'm not good at speaking in front of a crowd, have my own personal brand of inner dialogue that stops me. And in fact, the only people in society that don't have inner dialogue that stops them from becoming influential are sociopaths. Yikes, right? Not the world I want my kids to grow up in. And so, I really wanted good people, everyday people, to see that becoming influential and, doing projects or initiatives or businesses that can have a positive difference is really not that hard.
Some of the obstacles preventing your clients from being influential, could you talk about some of those things?
Yeah. I work with a lot of people who are just emerging into the conversation of thought leadership. When we talk about thought leadership, it's if you're someone who's pushing out new ideas or new ways of thinking or new products that really shake up the way people operate in life, then, you're in the realm of thought leadership. And when you're in that conversation of changing the way people think or disrupting something that's always been a certain way, that takes courage, and there's a certain set of rules and skills that you need to be able to address that. I often find the people I work with end up running into brick walls because they don't know how to connect with and meet influential people that they need to help them. I think, one of the biggest problems that I see people running into is that we all learned a certain skill set when we were learning networking in business. We learned things like, oh, it's a good idea to buy an important client or colleague lunch or coffee. And yet I think we all know intuitively that if you phoned up the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and offered to buy him coffee, that faster than you could say restraining order, that you'd find that there's a different set of rules and etiquette that apply to the highly influential. So a lot of help people with is understanding what's that different set of rules and how do you get to the point where those highly influential people would not only want to be in relationship with you, but endorse you and recommend you, right? The biggest mistake I see people make is what I would affectionately call the premature ask. The premature ask is kind of the equivalent of you've just moved into a new house and the neighbor comes by and says, great lawnmower, I can't wait to borrow that. Right? And I'm sure at that point, you're rolling your eyes back in your head going, oh my God, who did I move in next to? Right?
Right.
And, but the business equivalent of that you see all the time. You'll be at a networking function and, usually the most influential person in the room is either the host or the person on stage. And they'll walk off stage and there'll be a lineup of people waiting to meet them. Half of them will have a product, a book, or a CD in hand, and the other half wants to buy them a coffee, right? And the thing is, offering to buy someone influential a coffee that you don't even know is a lot like going to the new neighbor and saying, you're going to love my kids. You're so going to enjoy babysitting them, right? And it might be true that your kids are really great, but it's too soon to make that suggestion, right? So It's too soon in the relationship to offer to buy them coffee or lunch. It's too soon in the relationship to offer to have them sample your product or read your book or listen to your CD. It's premature. That's not an effective behavior in the influence game. So you just need to give that up and do something different.
As people take in this influence concept, what would be some of the things that would be better suited for approaching someone of influence in that situation?
Just like if you want to get respect, you give respect. If you want to get influence, you're going to give influence, right? And that sounds kind of motherhood and apple pie, but what does that really look like on the ground, right? So an example might be you could offer to shout someone out on your Facebook, or you might offer to write an article about someone in your newsletter. If the influential person you want to meet has a book, you could do a book review of the book, nominate someone for an award. The one thing you notice with highly influential people is they're always endorsing and shining light on other influential people. Now, they do it authentically. They never endorse people that they don't admire. So it's really important that you become really judicious about this. You don't want to be in a position of trying to build relationship with someone that inside you're saying, oh, I really don't like this person, but I need their endorsement. Don't do that. Find people you authentically like and admire and give them influence and watch what starts coming back to you.
Excellent, excellent. Can you describe a situation or an actual client that you've actually helped overcome these shortcomings of influencing the influencer?
Yeah, you mean since 8 a.m. this morning? It's kind of a daily thing for me. Well, just this morning I had a call with someone and, they were like, Teresa, can you recommend me to speak on some big stages? So I walked them through it. It's like, well, if you want to speak on big stages, I can't recommend you until you have a relationship with the person who owns that stage, and they need the opportunity to experience you and see you. But even more than that, you need the ability to have a relationship with them. One of the concepts that Shonda Perrin talks about in her work is when we build relationship with people, we create what she calls a cycle of reciprocity. There's a natural back and forth giving and receiving. It's not tit for tat or scorekeeping. But what it is that we as human beings, when we really respect and admire someone, tend to help each other, right? You give and receive. And so, asking to be recommended to speak on a stage, that was immediately what I would call a premature ask. So I coached her through, okay, how do we find some of those stages that you might want to speak on? Okay, let's start with how do you start building some relationship with the people who own those stages so that they're interested in having a conversation with you? And so, we were able to coach through it. And at the end of the call, she had a plan in mind to really go and, start hosting events of her own so that she could bring some of those people in, have a chance to get to know them, have a chance to shine the light on their work, and kickstart a relationship that way.
Beautiful. So congratulations on your new book, Mass Influence. That's outstanding. I know you're in the process of launching that. Can you go over some things that you go over in that book that help people with what you're trying to do?
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. Yeah, it is pretty exciting. It's pretty humbling to have your book hit the bestseller list, before it launches in the pre-sales. It's pretty miraculous, actually, seeing the amount of chatter that there is going on around this book right now. I really wrote this book to give people kind of stepwise how-to in learning the influence game, right? Here's some quick ones you can do right now. Change your mindset. Your social media is not to sell you. In fact, a lot of people hate social media because they hate selling themselves. So the good news is you no longer have to do that. Never, ever, ever brag on yourself again unless you're doing, I love what you teach, Tracy, about the humble brag. I think that's brilliant. You want to be using your social media to recommend other people. I actually have a 30-day challenge that I recommend. This actually comes in an online form when you buy the book, but I'll just give it to you. For the next 30 days, gift out influence 30 times. Make a list of 4 or 5 people that you really admire, that you'd love to be in relationship with, like people that if they endorsed your work would make a difference to you. And for 30 days, focus on finding ways to shine light on their work or build connection with them by helping them. And watch what starts happening to your influence should you do that. Now, I really want to recommend, though, if you've never climbed a mountain before, you don't start with Mount Everest. So I promise you, if you pick Oprah Winfrey and decide to gift influence to Oprah Winfrey for 30 days, they will not notice, right? Because Oprah Winfrey has hundreds of millions of people doing that, right?
Right.
But pick someone who's accessible to you and think about doing that, because that's a real-time skill that if you start doing it, it's just like riding a bike. Once you start riding, it becomes easy, and you'll learn the influence game very rapidly in doing that.
Well, that's a great technique and nugget. Thank you for sharing that. That's a great piece of advice. That kind of leads into the next question, but what would you consider the first thing someone needs to think about, obviously, when they're trying to gain their influence? I mean, what can they do? I know you're focusing on
I think the most foundational thing, I would have to say solve a big problem for the world. And, I mean, this one is so often talked about in business, we often forget to think about what it really means, right? But you not only want to solve a big problem for others, but you want to do it in a very specific way that they can wrap their head around, or that the public can wrap their head around, right? Like, think about what it takes for a 28-year-old fresh out of Bible college to become globally iconic. Of course, I'm talking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., right? Mm-hmm. But, he was 28 when he said, I make my life a stand for racial equality, which is big and broad and hard to wrap your head around. So he did it in a very specific way. He took on the Montgomery, Alabama bus system, right? And we've got a real life example of this going on right now. If you want to watch how influence works this month, watch what's going on with Judy von Niekerk and the digital bra. And I know some of your listeners have probably heard of Judy von Niekerk. Judy von Niekerk is the survivor of one of the worst incest stories you will ever hear, and actually went on so spectacularly recovered from that she became a major force in the women's empowerment movement. And so what Judy's taking on is she wants to disrupt the thinking of our generation of women that it's okay to hurt ourselves in the name of beauty, right? Don't even talk to me about bikini waxing. We wear shoes that hurt. 80% of women claim their bras hurt. And on top of that, chiropractors and cancer researchers cite poorly fitting bras as a major health risk, right? Mm-hmm. So Judy invented an app that you can download on your smartphone or your iPhone where women can scan their bodies in private and securely order a custom-fitting bra. It's just launching this month, and I'm willing to stake my reputation on this one going massively viral because Judy isn't just selling clothing. Judy's taking on a $16 billion industry and disrupting the thinking of a generation of women. She's taking a stand on what we talk about as beauty and fashion. So she's got all the makings of what creates influence. I'm willing to suggest that this is a great example to watch.
Nice. Excellent. What would be a good reason for somebody to, say, work with you, or how could you help them?
Really, I want to reach people who really want to shake up the world. And I really do believe that we are living at the time in history that we will look back on in history as the most significant point in the history of humankind. Because right now, en masse, we're waking up and realizing that we can control our own lives, and this is new thinking in the last 30 years, right? So I am really interested in reaching those people that want to spread that conversation. The chair of the Evolutionary Business Council, which is the community of thought leaders and emerging thought leaders that I lead all over the world, our goal is that transformational thinking, thinking that we create our own success, will reach 1.2 billion people on this planet by the year 2020 by helping 1,200 thought leaders each reach 1 million people. So if you think you're one of those, I want to talk to you.
Excellent. How can the listener find out more about how to contact you or how to get involved with your organization? And then we'll tell them how they can get your book. So start with that. How can they find out more about your organization and get involved?
Well, if you'd like to find out more about the Evolutionary Business Council, you can visit us at ebcouncil.com. And if you're interested in picking up a copy of the book, feel free to visit us at massinfluencethebook.com.
Somebody's ready to get started now. What's the best way to contact you? Email, phone, or?
We've got a free program available on our website. I'd suggest you just come on in and start there.
And that website is? Did you mention that?
Yeah, you could do massinfluencethebook.com.
Well, that's awesome, Teresa. Thanks again for being a part of the show, and congratulations on your new book. I know it's going to be massively successful, and we're just very glad that you spent time with us today. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome, Tracy. It was my pleasure to be here.
There you have it for this edition of the show. We'll see you the next time.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.